Okay, so I gotta figure out how do I do this? Anyway, sorry. Someone had a question, and their question was, oh, that's in a different area. That's why I'm gonna be busy. But anyway, someone had asked HershNoeie, and they said, hey, Hersh, where is it? The verdict has just came down for Kyle Rittenhouse. What are your thoughts on that, as well as Jacob Blake? Feeling pretty frustrated. What are your thoughts? Here's my take on it. I'm not going to go through and litigate the whole thing because, to be honest with you, with both cases, I did not watch with its entirety. I didn't watch both. And one of the things that I have said for quite some time is, especially for young black men, is to really focus on you. Because at the end of the day, something that I've learned, because I can go online and, there's a lot of things that bother me and bug me and annoy me and this, that, and the other. But it's never going to, that stuff's never going to change. You're never going to have a country where everyone is viewed equally. There's not an equitable situation, whether it's in the eyes of the general public with everyone, the police, the justice system, none of that stuff is going to be equitable because it is reliant on human beings who have their own sets of beliefs. They're raised a certain way. It's always going to be that way. Some people have said, well, we're still fighting the same things that we fought 60 years ago or 100 years ago. Yeah, because in the 1960s, people were talking about the injustice, and it's 1960, it's not 1890, and in 1890 people were talking about, it's not like we're in 1890, shouldn't be the way it was back in 1840 when black folks were slaves. My point with that is that it's never going to change. There will be small little victories here and there, but as far as society's view, it's never going to be an equitable situation for people of color in general. Even people of color are not going to be equitable to each other and treat each other with respect. You're never going to have that. And even if you dive deeper and you go into, whether it's the Latinx community or the black community or Asian community, or the indigenous community, you're never going to have people in those communities themselves view each other without some sort of issue. And so that's America. And other countries don't have to deal with it as much, but that is America. It is kind of how society is. So that's the first part. Second part is that I don't trust anything. And not to be pessimistic, I just don't trust anything. When you have a situation where it's determined on people who don't have the same life experiences as you, we already have an inequity here, right? When you look at the fact that some people make a whole bunch of money, and I'm not talking about people like Bill Gates and all them, but I'm just talking about just in general. You have some people who makes a bunch of money and they don't really deserve the job title. It's just based on who they know. And then you have somebody that busts their butt and they know everything, but yet they can never get promoted to where they should be because you have someone over them that basically is all about the good old boy system. So if I know you and you're my buddy, I'll move you up, even though you may not know anything and you may be a complete jerk. But this other person over here working hard, I'm not going to allow them to do anything. That exists throughout several different layers of society. And when people talk about protesting and different things like that, I've said before, you can definitely protest, but it's not going to do much. It really isn't. There's as society goes forward in terms of years, as every year goes by, certain ways of how we did things no longer are effective. It's kind of like society becomes immune to certain things that used to work in the past. They don't work as well in the future because those who want to keep things the way that they are, it's a losing battle for them. But those who want to keep things the way that it is adapts to they adapt. So you have to always constantly change the way that you handle things. And so me personally, when it comes to laws and the justice system, that's for somebody else to deal with. It's not for young black men to deal with. And what I mean by that is that in the eyes of public opinion, you're always going to be viewed as less than. It just is. Whether it's in our own community or whether it's outside of our community, you're always going to be viewed as less than. Now, people will say that's not true, but it doesn't matter what other people think. And this is one of the things that I've often tried to talk to young black men specifically for, is because no one else is really doing, well, there's other people doing it, don't get me wrong, but it's not, you don't have a lot of people advocating for that. You have people advocating for a lot of different things, women's issues, which are great, different communities issues, all of that. But when it comes to young black men, there's really not a lot of people saying, hey, it's tempting to do this or to do that or whatever the case may be. But it's what those who are over certain things, those who are in those who like to cause an issue, and those who want to keep things the way that they are, they're expecting for you to do certain things. And so far, after this verdict, there hasn't been any sort of rioting or anything like that, because that is what some of these people want you to do. Even though they may do it themselves and justify it, they're expecting you to do something. And they have legal backing when they do it. They're expecting you to do that. They're expecting, because then they're going to be able to use whatever they can against you, right? And you're still going to be in the wrong. My whole thing is America functions on money, whether it's local, whether it's state, whether it's national or international. America focuses on money. Money runs the country, period. And when you look at the countries that America cares about versus it doesn't really care too much about, it's always about money. There has to be an interest in it before America really cares. There has to be something, and people will say, but I don't understand why we go after certain things and, you know, with certain countries and others we don't. You have to sit and think about that as to why. It's just, that's been the history of America. Not saying right or wrong. It's funny, sometimes I do videos and people will point out and say, well, that's your, you know, that's the way you think, and that's, you know, and you're right, it is the way I think, and I'm right to be able to think the way that I think. It doesn't mean it has to be accurate or correct. It's just my beliefs. Just like there's a lot of people that have a lot of beliefs. There's people who hate me just for breathing, and they have the right to think that way. They have the right to believe that way, right? So you cannot expect people in this country on all levels to be on the same page. We're just never, it's never going to happen. And that's not me being pessimistic, it's being a realist. You're never going to have that. Some people champion certain things because they feel like a sense of pride in it. They feel like, you know, they want to have some sort of dominance. And when you're dealing with that mentality, it's always something where it just never works out well. What works out well is investing in you, not getting involved in that type of stuff. One, anything that involves the legal system, the police department, or anything like that, avoid 100% whenever you can. If you can. I remember someone hit the back of my car. We were turning, ironically, Noelle and I were going to rent a car because she was going to go out of town for her job. It had been raining and a lady wasn't paying attention. And we were in the, because basically to turn into the business, there was no turning lane. It was just, you're on the street, you have to turn. I was waiting for cars to go by. And I look in the back and she's getting closer and closer, still keeping the speed. And then by the time she realizes, like, oh crap, there's a car here, we can hear, well, I try to gas it to go forward and still boom, she hits me. Well, in the car, she's a black lady and her son, black son, was in the front seat. He's probably 13, 14. I was mad because I had Zara in the car and I had Zeta in the car. At the time, Zara wasn't even in school. Right. She wasn't even in school. Zoe was in school, but Zara wasn't. Of course, Zeta wasn't. So I was angry because of that. My family's in the car. And obviously you're not paying attention. But I did not want to call the police. I wanted to try to solve everything there because if she would have cooperated, excuse me, I'd say, hey, here's my insurance information, here's my ID, you know, all of that type of stuff, and we don't have to involve the police. That's 1,000 times what I want, because it's never, in my opinion, it's never a good idea to get law enforcement involved. And there's mostly great cops, but it just, I err on the side of, I'm a risk taker, but there's certain things I don't take risk on. And so she didn't have that. Her thing was, hey, follow me back to my house and I will give you some money. And it's like, no. Because again, that's another high risk. And it becomes a situation where I allowed her to, you know, if I roll the wheels and go to where she is, then there's a whole lot of things that she can say, right? Unfortunately, this is the world we live in. So my thing is that if I'm at a disadvantage at any time or feel that I'm going to be at a disadvantage, there's no point in me trying to be a hero. There's no point in me trying to beat my chest. There's no point in me saying you're going to listen and hear me, because you're going to be met with a tremendous amount of force or a tremendous amount of issues. That's just the history of how society has been. And so unfortunately, I had to call the police. They didn't arrest her, but they took the information. Normally, they don't want to come out because the police are overtaxed with doing a lot of things. But they said for this, they will, because she didn't have any sort of ID on her. So the insurance took care of it. And she was supposed to pay, I think we had to pay like, forget how much we had to pay. And they were trying to get that out of her. And of course, she wouldn't pay it. Right? But that was a situation. And so then at that point, allow it to go on her credit, because my insurance company would just put it on her credit that she has a debt that she didn't pay. That's something that's going to follow her for 7 years. Me, it's just like, whatever. I've forgotten about the money. It wasn't that big of a deal because the rest of the car was paid for by insurance. So she just had to meet my deductible, and it's like, whatever. I'm not worried about it. But that's how that situation got solved. My car got fixed. And I moved on. She still has to deal with that same issue every time she goes to even apply for anything or even think about it. Like, yeah, I would like to do that, but, you know, my credit. So that is the way to do it versus getting in her face, yelling, cussing, all of this, or taking the easy way out and say, just give me some money. Because the problem is that anything can be said. You don't know the whole stuff that goes into if the frame was, you know, jacked up or whatever the case may be. You don't know. So to me, it's like, I want everything on paper. I want something documented. I don't want you to give me a few $100. If you hit my side mirror or something, that's different. But when it involves like an impact and there's some crunch going on, then I want there to be some sort of, I want the insurance company to know. Period. So that's that particular circumstance. When it involves stuff like this and with Jacob Blake and whatnot, the best way to handle situations, and people, as adults, you can handle things how you want to. But to me, especially as young black men, the best way to handle this is to work on the laws that are there and to work on, you know, basically community developing community. And what I mean by that, and people will say that's frou-frou because, you know, the police, this, that, and the other. True. But you're going up against the police, which are supported by a tremendous amount of people and supported by an entire state. It's an uphill battle. And you're not going to win those battles typically. You're just not. You're not. And you have to understand your audience. The state you live in, the city, the county you live in, all of those are major factors. And there's certain places where it's just a waste of your time. And that's why I say there's certain places I would never live. When we were in Milwaukee, God, we got stares up and down, not only from white people, but black people too, just because we were a mixed race couple. It's not and nothing against that state. It's just not a state where I would want to live. Milwaukee was beautiful. And it was the cleanest city that big city that I've ever seen. But it's just not a city that I would want to live in, nor a state that I would want to live in. Their winters are just brutal. So there's a lot of things that you have to really kind of gauge. And when I say builds community support, there's so many programs that you can do that are behind the scenes that build up community, address certain key things. And a lot of people have done that for many, many years. And there's a lot of programs out there. But that is the stuff that you do, you know, and going into schools and encouraging young black men to go to college or to trade school and having programs designed behind that and focusing on getting money and support for those types of things and STEAM or what have you. That is important. And no, it doesn't change the fact that the police officer shot at Jacob Blake. But what it does do is it provides an economic empowerment for marginalized people. And you can't really change you can't change something that has already happened. Now, people will say, well, it shouldn't have happened to begin with. You're absolutely right. There's a lot of things that should never, there's a lot of things that should never have happened. Right? But the best way to move forward is to literally elevate an entire community, those who want to be elevated. Elevate an entire community slowly, because what happens is once you start to do that and people become empowered and people become business owners, people go into trades where they're always in demand. There's always a need for plumbers. There's always a need for construction workers, automobile repair techs, all of those, bricklayers. There's always a job for that. And if someone doesn't want to hire you, you're able to say, cool, I'll hire myself, because there are other people out there like myself who will say, you know what, I'll invest in you. You know what? How much money is it going to take? Cool. We'll be partners in this business. After a while, you buy me out. Okay? We'll use whatever equipment you have as collateral. And just in case if things don't work out, I still can recoup some money. But after a while, just buy me out. Right? With a little bit of interest. Buy me out. And that is by far more effective, because what you're doing is you're building up the community by investing in its people. Something that's never going to happen any other way. There are ways to basically push for change once you start doing that, because again, money talks. If you go in there and you don't have credibility based in the eyes of the community, even though you're a credible person, even though everything about your cause and what you're about is credible, if society doesn't view you as credible, your issue is never going to be addressed. It may be addressed locally, but it may not be addressed statewide. And if it is addressed on the governor's level, it may not be addressed on Congress's level. You see what I'm saying? So when you start to build your name, build your community, build your brand, and you have several people and you network, which is important. And this is something that the entire Black community should focus on, is when you start having several different business owners together who make a tremendous amount of revenue for a city, basically say, look, you know, there's things that we really and truly want to see happen. There's things that we want done. Meanwhile, you're supporting various different community centers in your community. You're doing all these different things. There is slow change. But trying to get change from other communities it's an uphill battle. It really is. And I know for some they're going to say, oh, it's not true, but it is true. It's basically a grassroots effort. It works in countries that have a horrible government that doesn't work for them. You have people on a grassroots level literally build their own society because their government is useless. And so they have to go in and build their own roads and supply their own power using solar and fund their own schools and build their own stuff. And they become their community is not amazing, but they're able to have a better life than what they would have had. And so that's the same thing here. Sometimes you have to vote with your feet and move out of places that are extremely not good for you. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't matter the legacy or, you know, hey, my grandfather moved here back in the day. It doesn't matter. You have to do what's healthy for you in all aspects, right? In all aspects. And I'm looking at my timeline on Facebook and really no one's really commenting because it's the same thing over and over and over again. And this is something that I saw years ago. I used to be like, and you know, even Spike Lee was like, yeah, same thing over and over again, same thing. But it's the same thing over and over again. There's not an incentive for there to be change. And even when you try to make Congress do the right thing, they're not going to, right? And it's not even a political thing in terms of one party over the other. Neither one really have an incentive to do anything. It's not important. Each state is like its own little small nation. And those little small nations have their own views on how they want to do things and run things, right? Congress basically says, here's the federal law. This is what we believe federally. And there's certain things they should do on a federal level. Anti-lynching law is basically one of them, but that they may not ever do. Right? They may not ever do. But what we can do as young black men is focus on leveling up. Not getting caught up in the weeds of things. And fighting battles that you're just never going to beat that hill. Leveling up. Keep leveling up. And then network. Network with big companies that do have a tremendous amount of power. Level up First, level up to medium-sized businesses that the city pays attention to. They're like, okay, well, you know. And then network. Build a good relationship. Continue to level up. Don't politicize things. Don't talk about any of those types of things. Talk about that in your inner circle. Don't even talk about those things. Because if you do, you risk the chance of alienation. But use those other businesses as a way to level up, and you're able to network with even bigger and bigger and bigger fish, because they're all chasing after the bigger fish until you get to the big ones, the ones that actually change the global tide of things, where you have one person that can say something and the whole stock market either drops or rises, or cryptocurrency can go up and down, like just based on one tweet that they say. Those are the people that once you start to level up and you start to get to know and network and network and network and network as a collective, then you can go to these states and you're sure that they're going to definitely listen to you by far more than they would otherwise. And I say this because I've seen evidence of it here and what I've actually had to do. I can go all day and talk to the city about certain things, like whatever. I'm small potatoes, but when you start to network with businesses that they got millions, then they're like, oh yeah, how you doing? It's different because those businesses provide a tremendous amount of jobs, a lot of tax revenue, notoriety for the city, all these different things, which at the end of the day helps these politicians get either elected or not. It's really, it's sad, but that's how it is. It is a money thing. And so I want folks, and not all will pay attention or care, and I have a very small platform. But for those that do listen, don't get caught up in the weeds. Going out there, wherever a protest may be, is not, in my opinion, I wouldn't do it. I personally wouldn't do it. I've seen where so many instances where things have went wrong. Your intentions are beautiful, but then it takes one person to do something stupid, and it throws 90,000 people could have great intentions, mind their own business. One person, whether they're a friend or a foe, could do something stupid, and all those 90,000 people are blamed for that one person's acts. And so that is the reason why I say going to a protest is never a good thing to do, honestly, in my opinion. The best thing to do is to vote with using your money and networking and building up. That's the best thing to do. There's other communities that have done that and have done very well. The Asian community is one example. And when I say Asian community, I'm talking all. Because as a collective, when it really matters, they can definitely weave together and have a very effective approach dealing with societal issues. And so that's something that we should do and learn from other communities, that the way to navigate things is oftentimes to just take a step back for a second and not react, because that is exactly how the system and how people are expecting for you to act. Right? National Guard on the ready, all this other stuff. You see what I'm saying? It just, there's no point. I think that it's important for people to, and again, there's folks on my Facebook that normally in the past would have, you know, said a bunch of stuff or whatever, and they would have been upset, but they are keeping their frustrations to themselves. One, because I think that they already kind of knew, and for two, because there's no point. You know, I used to expect that maybe some of the people that were friends of mine on Facebook would reach out and say, you know, how you doing? How you hanging, you know, as a black man, you know, I hope you're doing okay. I hope you're safe. I hope, and that never comes. And I think a lot of people of color expect that your friend or people who you consider friends are going to sit there and say, how you doing? Or, you know, this is horrible, or speak out against these types of things. And the reality is that some people just don't care. And other times people don't want to jeopardize or potentially jeopardize their own livelihood. So they don't say anything. And I've learned that there are certain situations that happen in life that affects other communities, and I've learned not to say anything. Not out of spite, not out of self-preservation even, but simply because of the simple fact my plate is so full of just trying to make it that I can't. And so this is another circumstance where, especially as young black men, don't get involved in stupidity. Don't lower yourself to what other people do. Don't lower yourself to where people expect for you to be. Work on trying to improve yourself. Look at the circumstances that are going on around you and focus on that. Because whenever I started to focus really on me and started to elevate myself, it made more people mad that I didn't fit the stereotype. It made more people mad that I wasn't and you still have people that try me on YouTube some, but it made people mad that I didn't fall into the stereotype. When you start making more money than the average person, and they're expecting you to be a baby daddy to 5 different women and have 30 kids, and you're not, but they may be the one that kind of lives that lifestyle, it makes them think like, damn. That's the best revenge you can get, is to literally level up And in our community, Black women have understood that. That's why you have a lot of them who continue to go through college and education and all that. And they're in spaces that normally we were not in, but they're making a path. And we still have a long way to go. But as young Black men, we need to do the exact same thing. Don't get bogged down in all this other stuff. You have people, even again, in our own community, whether they're Black females or Black males, who trash on us all day long as a collective. Trash on Black men all day long. You can't even, it doesn't matter. Those things don't matter. The bigots and the racists that do exist, it doesn't matter. Whether or not a person may be or not, it doesn't matter. You see what I'm saying? Like, people are saying, well, maybe Rittenhouse is a bigot. It doesn't matter to me. One way or the other, I don't really care. You see what I'm saying? People say, well, Biden's a bigot. You know, people may say things about Trump, but Biden's a bigot. I don't care about either one. Bless them both. Bless Trump, bless Biden, bless them all. That's not my concern. And once you get to that point, you live a much more better, happier life. Like, you know, for example, there was this guy I know that got into a fight because some dude called him the N-word. He got thrown in jail. The other guy didn't. And I said, at the end of the day, you got thrown in jail. You had to do community service and all this other stuff, but you ended up allowing someone to take your freedom away over a word that even if you punch him or not, he's still going to say it. He's still going to think it. If he's not going to say it, it's what did you solve at the end of the day other than create more problems for yourself? Don't allow someone to control you. Don't allow situations to control you, because that is exactly what some folks want. They want to see you fail. They want to feel good about themselves and have power. Some of the weakest people try to elevate themselves by putting other people down or trying to provoke other people or whatever. Don't fall for that. You see what I'm saying? When you focus on devaluing these types of things, devaluing bigots and devaluing racist talk and devaluing the hatred that some people have, whether it's in our community or not, when you focus on not caring about those people or what they may say, and you care more about, and you kind of expect it. I kind of expect that there's going to be that. But there's also a lot of people that celebrate you. And then when the people that do celebrate you, I go full in and support them. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's cool. But I don't get bogged down or get mad at the people who hate me. I'm not going to say I love them, but I feel nothing for you. I feel nothing for or against you. You see what I'm saying? That goes for political parties. I feel nothing for or against you. I feel nothing for or against certain states. It's just that those are states and those are people that I don't really want to be around or be a part of. And that's completely okay. That is self-preservation. You see what I'm saying? So to answer your question, really, that's how I feel about all of these instances. You see what I'm saying? Sorry, there was a freaking gnat. Missed it. A fruit fly, I think. But that is my view on all of this. Now, I have not always thought this way. This is more of a recent thing. You know, if you go back a couple of years, it would have been different. Right? It would have been different. My anger would have shown. But misplaced hate does not help you. And it's only going to further the cause against you. You see what I'm saying? Misplaced anger. If you take that anger and you use it in the way that the police, the governor, and all these other people, the judge, how they expect you to act, then you're always going to be in misery. You're always going to be in misery. But when you find ways to not even be around those types of people and be a part of that at all, then you have a better situation. And some people say, you know, it's not that easy because just going about your day, minding your own business, these people interject into your life. And you're right. You're absolutely right. There's no way to be 100% away from all the stupid. There's no way. And neither should you barricade yourself in your house and not go out. But what I'm basically saying is don't be a part of these things where it can go either way. Don't sit there and, you know, especially when it involves a police officer, just speaking back, you know, whatever. Why do you want to see my ID for? You know, I ain't do nothing. It's just like, it's not worth it. I mean, period. The law is behind the cop. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, I never understood that. The law is always going to be behind the cop. The jury, 99% of the time, is going to be behind the cop. Community is going to be 99% behind the police officer. The judge, all of them are going to be behind the police officer. You're a nothing. So when you're pulled over and you're sitting there and maybe the cop is completely a bigot, completely wrong in every aspect. And we've got a sheriff here that was that way, that pulled over a black newspaper guy. And then the sheriff calls the police on the black newspaper guy saying that he was harassing him. Even though we know that the guy's a problem, the sheriff's a problem. Thankfully, black people here and black men here have not protested because it's not going to change anything. That's what this guy and some of the people that support him are expecting. What we're doing is to apply pressure where it needs to be so that this guy has to be, the way that he's put into the position is changed. Because I forget, I don't know if he's elected. I don't think he's elected. But he can choose to resign or not. And there's no way to force him to resign. I believe. But it's to change the law so that those that are above him are able to say, yep, you're out. You see what I'm saying? There's a better way. Meanwhile, luckily, the black newspaper guy survived all of that. And I think he's either has already sued or going to sue or whatever the case may be. At the end of the day, give that man his pay and make the county suffer. You see what I'm saying? Make the newspaper guy, give him his wealth. Because anytime that you can do that, by all means do it. The best way to fight bigotry and racism is to either A, divest in those communities, like where Rittenhouse and all, like Wisconsin, divest in those, meaning don't put a business there. Don't give them taxpayer money. Don't invest buying houses. Don't invest putting business there. Don't invest by supporting any of those things. Right? That's the first step. The other part of that is making sure that they pay you when injustice happens and you feel that it's an injustice. Go through the legal system and do it that way. That's really the best effective way to do those things. Give your family, at the end of the day, this young black man, his family will be supported financially. It's unfortunate that he had to deal with this ridiculousness, right? But it is to be expected. He lives another day, thankfully, because anything could have happened with those cops and anything could have happened with the sheriff. Again, the odds are against him. And he was obviously miffed when the cops showed up and all this other stuff because he's just doing his job. And really, it was the sheriff that was the one that was a problem and is a known problem. But my point is there's certain ways to handle the situation versus whatever. Another thing, too, is, you know, the whole, people talk about guns, this, that, and the other. And however you want to live your life is up to you, but the odds go up. If you're out in public or if you're, you know, driving in your car and you have a concealed weapon and you're a black man, especially, the odds are always really high against you. It just really is. It's just, And some people say that's not true, but you haven't lived the experience of a black person. Here's the other thing too. You will have people from time to time, sometimes a lot of white dudes, who will sit and say, well, that's not true if they only would comply. My thing is, it doesn't matter what they say. It's not important, because unless you are a part of the party that's affected, your comments and your concerns or your devaluing is not even important. You're not really a part of the conversation. And that's why I'm trying to teach young black men to not go in the comments of social media when you have people talking negative about you, or they're trying to, because again, the same thing is trying to occur. They're trying to get a response out of you. You know, I remember a friend of mine from Georgia came, we went to a bar, and I went to the bathroom, and he went to get a drink. He was in the bathroom first, went to get a drink. There's a white guy in there with his dad in the bathroom. And so, you know, this guy's drunk. His dad had some drinks, but he's more clear thinking. The white guy's like, you know, hey, brother, how's it going? You know, and all this other stuff. And, you know, he's like, I don't know why, man. Black dudes don't want to say hi to me, man. They don't want to be my friend. And so then his dad's like, I tried to tell him that it's the way that you're approaching people, and they probably think it's weird. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, man. So, you know, he would continue to try, but it's like, you're not important to me. It's like, I don't know what to tell you. It's like, he was saying other stuff that some people would be like, that's a bit offensive, but I'm like, okay. And the reason why that is for me, and there was another guy once, I was in a place, white guy, who was really trying to provoke a fight. He was drunk and he was trying to, the truth comes out. It's truth serum whenever people drink. And he was trying to provoke a fight and, you know, trying to do this to me. But I'm like, I'll just look at him. I'm like, really? I'm worth too much. I have too many obligations to be worried about you, to try to even go down that road. If you want to hit me, go ahead. There's cameras. They'll show I've done nothing. You hit me. Do you think I'm going to hit you back? No. I'm not going to hit you back. Why? You want that. And then it's going to be, well, there's a he said, she said, and, you know, the cop's going to say, well, you know, he hit you, but you hit him back. And no, go ahead and hit me. Be like, yeah, he hit me. I don't know. I just was sitting there having a beer. He comes up and that's the way to handle it. Don't, and again, it takes a lot of fortitude, but it's really, you don't want to lower yourself down to a child, which is really what these two guys were. You don't want to lower yourself to being a child and responding the exact same way that they did, because that's the intention. That's what they're expecting. But they didn't expect what they got, which was, I didn't really care. A lot of times you have a small dude that will challenge a big guy because they want to feel big. I'm a pretty big dude. So these guys were a little bit smaller. The other guy was kind of big. But I'm like, this is high school. Who fights? You know what I mean? Like, I'm a gentleman. I do business. I'm not going to get out here and be ratchet or trash. That's just not me. And so, and that's never been me. Back in the day, if somebody would have said that, it would have been probably a fight. Excuse me. Or whatever. But whenever you have responsibilities, I got 3 daughters. Jail is not for me. I have a wife. Jail is not for me. I have businesses and obligations. Jail is not for me. So my whole thing is that I'm not going to engage in your conversation or engage in your stupidity or whatever. He could have sat there and called me 15 N-words and be like, all right. It doesn't affect me. It does not bother me. I expect that from you. Basically, I actually would be shocked if it didn't happen. So it's really basically saying, and some people say, well, man, that's you just being a whatever. And that's the difference between being a leader versus being a follower. And that's the difference between allowing someone to take you someplace mentally where you shouldn't be, right? You're allowing them to rent space in your head, which is what they're wanting to do. And me, At the end of the day, I'm going to come for that dollar. So if you do something that you're not supposed to do, at the end of the day, financially, I'm going to come after you, whether it's a business, whether it's an individual, whether it's the state, whatever. At the end of the day, I'm going to say, you know what? I didn't do anything wrong. Right? I didn't do nothing. But I'm going to make sure that I sue you. And you may not have anything, but still, at the end of the day, you're going to be the one that has to face the consequences somehow. It may not be a lot, but you're gonna feel it, right? Versus he says a couple of things, I start fighting, and then the police throw at least me in jail. You assaulted him. You see what I'm saying? That's why you see a lot of videos, and I'm so proud when I see videos. There was a black girl who was in, I think, California, San Diego. And this crazy neighbor guy is coming out calling her the N-word, 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 because some people think that, you know, if I call you the N-word, you're going to get mad and you're going to fight and you're going to act a fool. And a lot of black people realize, I'm never going to, you were brought up that way. That's you. And this guy was probably in his 40s. That's you. And he seemed a little crazy. And you have this little black woman who is only in her 20s, and she's like, I don't get it. Like, you're weird. And filming this guy, and he's harassing her, and the neighbors who were white, you know, the lady opened the gate because the woman was like, this guy is weird. There are good people. And when the good people see this stupidity, it adds more. Again, it's kind of like networking through trauma. They see how stupid this person is, and they see how calm you are and how you're like, I don't get it. And you have a lot of people that will say, this is weird. So whenever she explained, this guy's calling me the N-word, and he's doing this and doing that. And she was also harassed sexually in an alleyway, she said on the video the other day. Not by this guy, but by somebody else. She was saying this, and then the woman who opened the gate for her, her boyfriend or husband, jumped the fence to go to confront this guy. So it's like, at that point, let it be. Keep the cameras rolling, but let it be. Don't go into the situation, when I'm talking to black folks, don't get involved in the legal system. It's never going to work in your favor, typically. Never. Whether it's criminal, civil, it's never going to work in your favor. And unfortunately, there's some of us who are going to be out here thugging and doing all that other type of stuff. That's a separate community. In our community, they're black folks, but they're a separate community. You're never going to get through to those individuals that this is not the way to deal with things. Again, some people, that's the way they're brought up. You're never going to change them unless those individuals decide, you know what, that's not the life for me. And not everybody that was brought up in a poor community thinks and acts that way. There are some that do. And there are some that they only learn by bad examples. And that's unfortunate. And it's also the same in many other communities. But the vast majority of folks are like, I don't get it. And that's completely okay. Don't get involved in the stupidity. So I know this is a long, almost 1 hour. I'm going to push an hour. I'm going to go ahead and do an hour. I know it's a long video, and there's probably not a lot of people watching all the way to the end. I hope that you do. But this is one of those things where I want, especially the black community, men and women, to don't get triggered by this, because that's exactly what they're wanting. There's certain things when you listen to interviews, there's certain words that are being used and all this other stuff and all of these things, and it's all to incite a response. And that's okay. Actually, it's actually okay, because they're inciting a response. But the question is, what type of response are you going to give them? Are you going to give them fire and fury, or are you going to go into, vigilantism like what they do? Or are you going to basically say, you know what, cool. I was going to invest in this community, but I guess not. I was going to go to college here, but I don't think so. Or I was going to have my life here, or I was born and raised here and I lived here for so long. I don't know. That is probably a better response of saying, you know what, I question now. I question some things, because it's not just some individuals that were involved. You had a whole jury. And some people will say, you know, the jury was right and whatever. I don't care. You know, it doesn't really matter to me whether the jury was right or wrong, or they believed in the best that they could or whatever. The evidence was this or that. I don't care about any of that. Right? Right and wrong and all that. Doesn't care. I don't care. What I actually care about is our response and what we are going to do moving forward. And what we should be doing is going to our home or apartment or what have you, going online and looking at what school we want to apply ourselves to, whether it be a trade school, community college, or a university, and finding a skill that we want, or basically saying, you know what, I have a pretty good talent at certain things. I want to do this. We have some people that are musicians, and a lot of times in some communities you can get grants for that, where the community is paying you because you're an artist. You know, there's so many different things that you can fight for another day on versus acting the way that they want you to. No one is allowed your freedom. No one. And you should never be shackled up in chains. That was something we fought hard against. Never allow someone to put you in chains. Just don't. You know, and that's the reason why I also tell something I want to tell young black men too is don't do stupid stuff. Don't drink and drive. Don't break the laws that are there that you know are laws. Right? Don't do all these different things that you know are going to get you in front of a judge or a jury or whatever. Don't. It's everybody gets paid but you. Right? Everybody, you're paying out, but everybody gets paid but you. Even the person that's doing all the transcripts, they're getting paid. The people pushing paper, they're getting paid. The cops standing around making sure that the court is cool, they're getting paid. The judge is definitely getting paid. All the attorneys, they're getting paid. Right? The jailhouse is getting paid because they have your dumb self in there, and taxpayers are definitely, those who are scared, are willing. The kids take my money all the time. I don't got no, I never have cash. But they're willing to pay top dollar. They are willing to let a pothole that's been there for 20 years happen, but they're happy to definitely pay to keep you in there. So everything is getting paid and financed except for you. And at the end of the day, you're there as a fool. You see what I'm saying? Like, if there's no point in being involved in something where it's already an uphill battle, all of the support, even on the national level, is going to be there for, whether it's the media, all these people are going to be for one side, and then there's you. Think about it this way. There's me, and then there's everybody else. Tupac says me against the world. And a lot of people aren't really reading through that and understanding what the man meant, but it really is true. It's you against the world. So before you do something, think about it long and hard, because it's really you against the world. These attorneys can care less. At the end of the day, they're going to get paid. They're going home to their families. Their families enjoy nice vacations that you can only dream of. They live in great houses that you can only dream of. You know, they're doing all these different things, eating nice dinners only that you can dream of. And you're basically trying to figure out how to pay to keep yourself afloat, how to pay these attorneys to basically survive. It's just not worth it. Talking back to the cop, it's not worth it. Answer their questions, and you may have jerks. There's a lot of jerk cops. There's a lot of good ones, but there's a lot of jerk cops. I don't trust any of them. I can respect you, but not necessarily trust you. So that's basically the case. I don't trust any of it. In America, I don't trust the entire country. I don't. You know, I trust me. I trust my family. And what I'm trying to teach young black men is trust you. Don't try to really feel like that you're going to be some sort of a savior and that you're going to stand up for your rights, because you can't stand up for your rights if you're in jail. You see what I'm saying? I see so many videos that I've watched, and one of them is this guy who was they call him a mall cop, the mall security guy, Darren Long. And you see some of the individuals that he come across, and a lot of times people watch that and they think that's how all black people act. And that's how all black people are going to respond to things. And that's the way all black people are. And it's okay for them to think that way. It's okay for them to think that way. Because whenever you do show your true self and you go out and you shine better than they do, and you're living better than they do, and you're above everything that they're able to do, it's a real big kick in the pants whenever you see something you're not expecting. It's a real big kick in the pants whenever you're seeing people who you feel are below you, but in every aspect, they've elevated themselves above you. And that is where I want young black men to be. Don't be out there doing stupid stuff. Don't be out there, feeding into the bull. Don't have friends who sit here and try to champion stuff that works against you or anything like that. Because there's a lot of them. Unfortunately, I went to school with some people like that. Unfortunately, I worked with people that think like that. And that's their right. Don't get into a whole conversation as to why they think that way, or even catch feelings as to why they think that way. Just understand that that is who they are, and that's the way that they were raised. Whether it's the way their parents raised them or society, somewhere in their life, that's where they were raised. That's okay. Don't be around those types of people. You see what I'm saying? I'm not saying surround yourself in an echo chamber, but don't be around people that are going to be a toxic force in your life. Be around people that really and truly look out for your best interests, that really value you, that really feel that there's a need for you to be treated respectfully. Be around those people that not only speak it and talk about it, but they are about it. And so at the end of the day, this is not something that really, that I'm like shocked. I'm not shocked by. I do feel bad for the people that lost their lives and their family. I do feel horrible for them. But I want us to focus on us and focus on not being a part of the system in any aspect. And to young black women, don't be a part of the welfare system either. Don't be a part of that system. Don't. There are some people who are like, I need to make ends meet. I get that. But if I can talk to young black girls before they get to that point, do not be a part of the welfare system. Don't. If anything, and there may be people who may be an atheist, and that's okay. Go to your local church, talk to them, say, look, you know what, I'm an atheist. Go to your local black church. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any of this stuff, but I do need help. And if there's a church willing to help you, which there should be, and you're like, you know what, I can't make ends meet, how do I make things happen? That's the best route to go. But anyhow, I got to get off here because Noelle's going to keep calling me, and I've been talking for an hour. Anyhow, any way that you can not be a part of the system, black man or black woman, is the best way to go. Trust me. Make sure you join the Discord down below. Make sure you like, share, and comment. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.